Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We're running a session on building the future, really focusing on the art of building your own copilots. And I'm very pleased to say we're joined by Amy Wild and Kevin Hughes to take us through a bit on the vision and patterns of Copilot Studio in the Power Platform and looking at how copilots can be used across organizations, touching on the story of a customer and then sharing where you can go for more information. So Amy, can you kick us off? You're on mute.
Hi, thanks, Will. Thanks for the introduction. So today we're going to be speaking a little bit more about Copilot Studios. And the first thing we wanted to do before talking about building your own copilots is actually just thinking about the context that we have in the UK today. So digital spend is really a priority for nearly every organisation in the UK now. It's predicted that within 2024, the investment levels are going to reach 95 billion. And under the hood of that, we're also seeing that organizations are really, really ramping up their low code spend. And what we mean by that is that organizations are spending a lot more on digital tools that allow them to build things out at pace. And Copilot Studio very much fits into that bill. If we go on to the next slide as well. What we've got here now is also just a little bit of an overview or insight into some of the organizations that are actually using Copilot Studio today. You will probably have heard the term Copilot or Copilots used a lot recently. And essentially it means, an AI assistant or experience that can help you in achieving different tasks. And we're now seeing that there's over 30,000 customers across every industry that are actually benefiting from the use of Copilot Studio. So this is when actually individual organizations are building out their own copilots to interact with different audiences, whether these are customers or employees. And we've got some great stories. If we just have a little look at what's been going on at PayPal, they've really used Copilot Studio to help support the experiences of their employees. And now actually a lot of HR and IT processes that otherwise would have required the input of the HR department at PayPal are being addressed through Copilot Studio. If we also take a look at Holland, America, I think this example is really, really interesting and really exciting. And they're actually using Copilot Studio and the generative AI capabilities within it to enable customers to kind of pick their perfect holiday. And essentially, customers can speak to their holiday mood, so what kind of holiday they're looking for. And Copilot Studio can use that information to tailor the perfect vacation around each guest. That's obviously had a really positive impact for the customers themselves, and it's also a huge revenue generating opportunity for Holland, America. And also at HP, again, this is very customer focused, but essentially it's around enabling customers to find the right support that they need based on the product they're trying to use. And that's really helped streamline that process. So it's a much quicker task for customers to complete than it was previously without the use of Copilot Studio. We just wanted to take a moment as well to really make you aware that, copilots are here. So at present, billions of chats this year are being, are taking place through Microsoft Copilots and also Copilot Studio. And really, whether it's a colleague or it's somebody else, within your immediate circle, many people around you are using Copilots or Copilot Studios to make their lives easier. And it's something really that is available today. We also just wanted to highlight here that it's not just customers and business employees that are benefiting from Copilot capabilities and Copilot Studio, but it's also having a huge impact within the developer community in terms of that AI-assisted coding capabilities. And that's another thing we just wanted to draw your attention to here. And before I hand over to Kevin, just wanted to talk in a little bit more detail, and I think Will spoke to this at the top of the call, around what the application of copilots are in terms of those copilots that organizations are building themselves, and then also speak a little bit around the patterns and trends that we've started to see emerge as Microsoft with our global customer base. So firstly, very much a focus around Copilot for your customers. So and when we say customers, it can be any external audience. So it might be customers in many retail scenarios, but if you're thinking around the public sector, it could be citizens or patients. We've then got Copilot for your employees. So kind of any tasks that previously, your employees might have had to do a lot of kind of manual process involved with, or had a lot of connection with different departments, such as your finance department or your HR department. You can build out Copilots that will actually really help employees to achieve key tasks. And then you can also be using the capabilities within Copilot Studio for automation to serve both of those audiences in terms of customers and employees. And if we go across to the next slide, we'll have a look in a little bit more detail around those patterns that we've seen emerging. So this is what we've seen in terms of Microsoft, in terms of our customer base, which, as I mentioned, is global. So we're seeing a lot of use cases within B2C, this kind of customer support approach, which also we were talking about when we went through the HP example. It's a great technology to help you provide the right level of support at the right time with very little friction for your customers. From a B2B perspective, we're seeing the use of Copilot Studio as very much an evolution of things like supplier portals. Previously, a lot of organizations were using portals through technology such as Power Pages, where suppliers could surface information that they were looking to find, and then would still need an employee within that organization to share that. You can now use Copilot Studio to surface that information really, really quickly, speed up that interaction, and make sure your suppliers are getting the information they need as quickly as they can. And then B2E, and by this we mean business to employee. Again, loads and loads of use cases emerging within human resources and expense management. And it's worth drawing your attention here to actually an internal use case at Microsoft. We have built out a Copilot called Ask HR, and that essentially acts as our human resources Copilot. It's a brilliant resource. I use it probably weekly at the moment. It's really useful for quickly seeing to hand how much annual leave I have left for the year, changes of my role as we move into a new financial year, and also to ask quick queries if I've got questions about my contract or employment at Microsoft, but I don't necessarily have the time to sift through loads of paperwork. So these are just some of the patterns emerging today, and we think providing this framing will help you to identify use cases in your own organization also.
Thanks, Amy. So what is Copilot Studio? So Copilot Studio is essentially our conversational orchestrator. It's our engine and our toolkit for us to be able to go out there and build Copilots or extend existing Copilots, such as the M365 Copilot that Amy spoke to at the beginning. In fact, Copilot Studio is the toolkit for all of our Copilots. It is the underpinning for how we enable you to build new capabilities and new skill sets into our existing Copilots like M365 or domain-specific Copilots. But what we really like to talk about is on that far right side of being able to create your own custom enterprise Copilots, be that for your customers or be that for your employees internally, and enable them to be more productive. But a Copilot doesn't reach its full potential without reaching out to the wider ecosystem. It doesn't reach its potential in isolation. So we need to enable Copilots to be able to surface information, be that from your existing Microsoft estate, so Microsoft apps, the graph, etc., or from your other line of business systems and your enterprise data, be that the likes of Salesforce, SAP, or ServiceNow, and being able to reach out and grab the information that is required and needed to be able to drive those processes and those experiences that you require. In fact, with Microsoft Copilot, what we essentially have is the whole of the Power Platform at our disposal, and that includes our connectors. So we have over 1,400 out-of-the-box connectors as part of the Power Platform, which enables us to then go and retrieve information, drive actions, and connect out to those systems as we need it, as well as the rest of Azure around us. And all of this coming together is what enables us to be able to build great Copilot experiences. Be it on the left, where we're able to build Copilots that are able to answer questions and use generative AI to answer questions from your data. be that from static sources such as curated knowledge, or being able to reach out into maybe unstructured data such as large file formats and unstructured information, or dynamically. So common use cases, I may be able to answer questions, but what about the user that's using it? How can I go and grab information and understand the person that I'm working with and use their profile information to drive how I'm going to better serve that user? But on the right-hand side, it's also about actions. How do I drive actions out of my copilots? So it's great being able to answer questions, but I'm going to need to be able to do things as well. So being able to go to other services, backend services, etc., and drive those actions. And what we have with Copilot Studio is the ability to do that generative as well. So that is a preview, essentially lots of work going into this space where we're able to use the large language models and generative AI to be able to reason and understand what it is that a user is trying to do, and then use connectors and plugins to then drive actions out of that. But not everything needs to be generative. In fact, a lot of the time when we're talking to customers, they need to be able to slide the dial around the use of what is generative and also what is not. So think around a regulated market, or think around I'm serving a customer and I need to do certain specific things to be able to do that. What Copilot Studio enables us to do is bring the best of these two worlds together, so that we can drive generative answers, we can drive actions where we require, but when we need to, we can slide down that generative and bring in our handcrafted topics, those that we have complete control over exactly what it's going to do, and embed those alongside our generative answers and actions. And really, that's all coming together using those connectors, using this framework that we inherit as being a citizen of the Power Platform, be able to bring those connectors and that data to life. So for this, what I'd like to do is give you a short demonstration of a example in retail banking, which is inspired by some of the work that we've paused. Okay, so here I am inside Copilot Studio, and what I have here is a Copilot that I've built, which is our banking assistant. And on the right-hand side, you can see there this panel where I'm able to test out what my Copilot's able to do. And what we have here is an example of I'm a logged in user. I've authenticated into this, and it's able to pull the information around me as I start this conversation. As you can see there, it's saying, hello, I'm your digital banking assistant. And it's straight away starting this conversation saying, I noticed you've had a problem with your recent transaction. I can help with that if you have some questions. And it's serving up some of the questions that I may want to ask it first. So some examples of things I could ask it to. So I'm going to say here, why was my last transaction declined? And using this, it's going off and it's grabbing the information around my profile. It's doing that dynamically. And then it's using that information that's grabbed from the connector to say, okay, I can see that your last transaction was declined due to insufficient funds. And it's generated this automatically. I can see the transaction amount was 350, but the current account balance is currently 200. And then I'm going to ask it a question. I'm going to say, eek, where did I spend it all? And with that question, it's then going to, again, go off, use that dynamic information, and it's going to retrieve that and try and reason over it. It says, okay, I don't have any knowledge for this, but I do have access to the profile, so I'm going to have a look at that. And it's saying, actually, I can see there that you spent £600 on online shopping. So that could be something that we could say, okay, then maybe there's a spike here that's out of the normal. But we can see there that it's summarized the information around my account. And I could say, well, whoops, I'm going to need to transfer some money. So I'm going to say, I need to transfer some money. And with this, what we have is we've got that topic we've handcrafted. So this is something that I don't want to be generative, but I do want to be able to serve it to my customer. So as I go through this, it can say, sure, I can help you with that. And we've got a handcrafted topic that's then going to enable me to answer these questions. So there I can see that my current limits around my current balances around my accounts, so my current account and my savings account. And we're also able to then show that in a rich media form. So we've got something called adaptive cards here, where we're able to add graphics over the top. And then can see that it's saying, okay, where do you want to transfer your money from? So I'm going to say my savings account, and then it's saying, okay, well, where do you want to transfer it to? My current account. And then it's asking how much I would like to transfer. However, I'm not quite sure. So I'm thinking, well, I need some money to be able to pay that transaction. But I also, I have other things to pay as well. So I'm going to say, how much do I need to pay my direct debits? And with that question, what I've done is I've interrupted. So we're able to flip between what I'm doing with my declared topic. And also in this case, I've interrupted that. And it's now using generative AI to say, well, actually, let's go have a look and answer that question. And I can bring you back to this topic. So I've asked around how much do I need to pay my direct debits? It's then use that information to then have my profile information to answer that question. You have £500 outstanding. And then it's bringing me back into my topic. How much would you like to transfer? So I'm going to say, make it 850 then. And with that, it's now completed that process. And I've got there that I'd like to confirm the details of my transfer, 850 from my savings account to my current account, which I can now confirm. And if I click into here, you can see that topic that I was going through was all built using a designer. So I didn't need to build any code for this. I can embed code where I need to, but essentially I've got a designer that enables me to handcraft that topic, as well as being able to bring in those actions and bring in those connectors as I need to. So an example of a great use of Copilot Studio with our customers is Virgin Money. So Virgin Money were able to use Copilot Studio, and from their prototyping to actually going out and using this with their customers, they were able to achieve that within 8 weeks. And with that, they've also reached a satisfaction which is only seconded to face-to-face interactions. So what we have with Virgin Money, in a quote from Adam Pace, the leader over there on the use of Ready, which is their Copilot, they were able to set a new standard for how they were able to engage with their customers. In fact, what they're able to do is take people, our conversational designers, out of the contact center domain and then apply those to be able to go and build topics and go and understand how we should interact with our customers. And it was that pace of saying, this isn't just an IT-led project, it is a business-led project, and giving them the tools to be able to roll up their sleeves and go and build Copilots for themselves. But it doesn't stop there. So what we have with Copilots is this evolution. So currently, Copilots are responding. You go and you have a conversation with a Copilot, and it will then generate a response and answer that. So we're seeing search, summarization, and generating of responses. But where we're seeing Copilots move to is this ability for them to start to automate, to become essentially members of your team that can start to work in the background. And what this means is Copilots are moving from just responding to independently and proactively responding to events, things that are happening within inside your organization, such as changes as data or something that maybe someone's been enrolled, and then act on behalf and under a long-running process where it can proactively reach out and interact with your employees. So to show this coming to life, I'm going to play a short video. Oh, no, not. You can cut that bit. So what we have with Copilots is essentially this coming together within our agent capabilities. So agents are essentially our way within Copilot Studio to build these long-running proactive agents that are going to trigger on actions and then drive long-running conversations behind the scenes. And you can see here this this new capability and this interactivity is coming first into Copilot Studio and first into our platform, so you can start to build these experiences out for your employees. So let's go and see this in live.
Redefine business processes with the Copilot Studio. Create.
Why did that stop?
Copilot. Redefine business processes with the Copilot Studio. Create Copilots that act.
You're on mute, mate.
You get an audio?
It's a bit jumpy. Rav, is it possible to include a video in the editing? Because we've got the source file of this. Would that be easier?
I think play it again, because it wasn't jumpy for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you try playing it again?
Yep. And were you getting audio as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Agent. Redefine business processes with Copilot Studio. Create copilots that act as agents, working independently for you. Simply describe what you want your copilot to do. Easily configure your copilot with the details it needs, like instructions, triggers, knowledge, and actions. Quickly test your copilot before you deploy, and seamlessly publish across multiple channels. Watch it use memory for context, reason over user input, and manage long-running tasks. Copilot can learn from feedback to improve. And you're always in control. Put Copilot to work for you with Copilot Studio.
So what we've seen there is the ability for Copilots to trigger on an action, such as there where a new person is onboarded, the Copilot was then able to trigger on a long-running process and advise them on training that they needed to go complete. And then within 7 days to then look at that training and say, okay, I recommend you do these courses. Here's some follow-ups for you to do. So it's not a case of a new hire having to go to a Copilot, having a conversation with a Copilot and it responding. It is reaching out, looking at the things they need to do, and then triggering those actions. And that's essentially been recently announced at our Build conference and is coming soon. So let's look at our investment themes. So as you've seen, we are investing in the use of Copilots with agent capabilities, background processes, but also the ability for us to extend Copilots and look at how we can use the Copilot Studio as a stack, not just for creating bespoke Copilots, but also extending others. And as well as also all of the enhancements that we're getting as part of the studio, including all of our recent announcements, such as the ability for us to bring in multimodal support, so not just having text conversations, the ability for us to use our new knowledge hub, so we can surface information such as documents or other storage and websites, and also the ability for us to then use those generative actions. So you will see coming soon a public preview right now where you can use our large language models alongside your Copilots to understand the intent and look at how it can plan and run its own actions behind the scenes. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Amy, who's going to talk us a little bit more around how this works with the Power Platform.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, one of the things we wanted to draw attention to is Copilot Studio. What we focus on a lot today is how essentially it's very much the front end of the overall Power Platform, which is Microsoft's low-code platform. And it's very focused on providing those experiences to customers and employees. And the rest of the platform, kind of speaking to some of the points Kevin has already made, really help you to create self-service tools and improve productivity and efficiency through different things such as the creation of apps or through the creation of automations. And then Copilot Studio can really come in as the front end of those digital tools. And it was actually mentioned in one of the slides earlier, but we wanted to go into a little bit more detail about it now. It's the story of Accenture and their journey with using the Power Platform. And they've really focused on using Power Platform, including Copilot Studio, to create self-service tools and resources for their employees from an internal perspective. And I know they've actually also used Copilot Studio to improve the communications with some of their external customer audiences also. But we wanted to talk a little bit about what's the broader impact of actually using Power Platform essentially organization-wide. So as well as the Copilot Studio being able to really improve experiences, what Accenture have already also really seen is this huge improvement in the reduction in IT demand for short-term applications. And this has been driven by essentially the creation of a new workforce. So you'll see here on the slide, it mentions that they've got around 50k newly skilled citizen developers. And when we talk about the term citizen developer, what we're essentially meaning is, people who might not have a job role which says developer or analyst within their title, but they've developed digital skills to be able to actually self-serve their own needs. And what this means is that a lot of people can very easily create different solutions, whether that be apps or portals or automations or copilots via Power Platform, with some of the less traditional skills that you might associate with development. And that's what's driven that 30% reduction in IT demand for short-term apps. So it's just had a huge impact in terms of accelerating productivity. And what we wanted to just draw your attention to as well is, I mean, Kevin's really spoken to it already in his slides, but how we're really accelerating AI and automation within the Power Platform. So AI is now being infused into all of the different areas of the platform, whether that be Copilot Studio, automation capabilities, or things such as Power Apps. And we'll talk in a little bit more detail around what that actually looks like. But essentially, the kind of three key areas that we see this happening in is the use of natural language and being able to create generative answers and also generative actions through the infusion of AI. So we wanted to talk a little bit more about what the impact of Copilot is, both in terms of Microsoft Copilots and Copilot Studio, but it's having a real impact in how you build and what you build. When we think about how you build, the use of Copilot makes it a lot easier to include different individuals from in your organization to be involved with the build process. So whereas your makers audience previously might have just been your digital or IT team, your makers now are much broader within your organization. And we really saw that in that Accenture example, where we've seen, you know, an organization has essentially created an additional 50K plus makers outside of their usual development team. And it's also had an impact on what you build. So the focus now is actually a lot more in terms of those kind of experiences or the end element of the interaction between yourself as an organization and an audience, whether that be customers or employees. And this is just drawing on from that in terms of the impact that we're seeing with Copilot and its infusion into kind of different areas of people's working life. So in terms of automation, we've seen that it's actually increased the velocity to create a flow, or, you know, essentially a task in Power Automate twofold. And that is essentially because you've got a Copilot working alongside you to help with the creation of that flow. And there's a 70% increase in success in building out Power Automate flows with the use of Copilot, because you essentially have this assistant sat there with you to support you and provide immediate feedback when you might be getting stuck in terms of the creation of flow or connecting certain connectors within a flow. From a development perspective, we've also seen a really, really positive impact with the use of Copilot being infused within the Power Platform. So again, here we've seen a 60% increase in the ability to build out Power Apps when you have Copilot as an assistant. And it's also created an increase of 80% faster build when you're building apps that you might be kind of improving or evolving from something like Excel or Access databases. And this slide really brings to life some of the points I was making earlier about how are we infusing AI and automation across the whole platform so that you can build intelligent solutions in a way that is both faster and smarter in terms of the end solution. So if we think about AI in Power Apps, it's kind of showing you some of the elements on the screen here, but something that I find really, really exciting is the ability to actually do app development using natural language. This is really an evolution from previously on the platform. You know, you could do a drag and drop, which was already relatively straightforward. And now it's even more simple in that you can actually instruct Power Apps to create an app. So you could say something like, please build out a simple app to collect data for X, Y, and Z based on the information in this Excel file. And it will very quickly use that information and the things like columns, data, etc., in the Excel file to build out that front end for you, which is really, really exciting. In the Power Automate space, there's the ability again to actually also build out flows from a natural language perspective, and also to include kind of generative actions. So the ability of when you start creating a flow to actually get some prompts from Copilot about where you might want to develop that flow, or what might be next best actions based on how they see similar automations being built out on the platform. When we think about it in terms of Power Pages, it's similar to the impact in Power Apps in that you've actually got that ability to start to build out websites and portals using natural language. But also you can start to bring in generative AI. When we see that actually a lot of the use cases of Power Pages is often around making a more intelligent knowledge base and bringing those generative answers into that build, and you building out content very quickly. And that continues on to this ability to essentially infuse conversational AI. So making a lot of that, taking some of that kind of static information that previously was very internally focused, something like a knowledge base or an FAQ internal document, and infusing that into a conversational AI for your customers or employees to access through the platform. So yeah, we're really seeing a huge impact of Copilot, not only in its ability to create your own Copilots through Copilot Studio, but also in terms of how it's going to guide you when you're building solutions out throughout the entirety of the platform.
So thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for both Amy and Kevin for taking us through the art of building your own Copilots. But just as Amy was sharing there, the opportunity to expand building solutions across the Power Platform. So a key takeaway for today in terms of Copilot Studio is we recognize it as the fastest way to build powerful generative AI on an end-to-end platform. And again, as we explored, there are opportunities to support employee experiences and customer experiences as well. So in terms of next steps, no matter where you are in your journey, in your digital transformation, there is lots of information and lots of support available for you. Please do visit our link, aka.ms Limitless Transformation, where you can access some of the latest and greatest information that we've shared, as well as some of the new materials available to you, such as the adoption assessment, where you can look at how your organization is going through a digital transformation and how you can adopt some of these new technologies we've covered today, as well as one of our latest assets that we've shared, which is the architecture framework. So based on the Azure framework, we have collected Microsoft's best practice in terms of how you can configure well-architectured approaches and best practices across your organization. So thank you again, and see you again soon.